Unfortunately, while Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations over 200 years ago, many of his ideas have a timeless nature and are truer today than they were then. Adam Smith held that a system of perfect liberty, or a system of natural liberty, would produce the most prosperity. According to Smith, the role of government ought to be that of securing the freedom of all people and all institutions to invest their money as they see fit, without restriction, and allowing business people to engage in any legal business without restriction. Then the economy would self-organize to create everything that it needs. When the economy needs more high-paying jobs, for example, it will self-organize to create them. This would automatically lead to a prosperous, full-employment economy with plenty of those high-paying jobs. In a modern industrialized economy, this self-organization occurs primarily through horizontal innovation. Horizontal innovation is the purview of entrepreneurship. Hence, the funding of entrepreneurship is in effect the funding of self-organization. Constraints on venture capital are, in effect, constraints on self-organization. By calling for a system of perfect liberty or a system of natural liberty, Adam Smith argued against any constraints on venture capital. Adam Smith argued likewise against monopolies. Government constraints on venture capital, however, tend to give a monopoly to the pre-existing businesses as a whole, which is even worse than the case-by-case grants of monopoly against which Adam Smith railed. In the extreme, by altogether outlawing entrepreneurship, communism gives an even stronger monopoly to the pre-existing businesses. And we all know how well that worked out. Prosperity is a product of the synergy between mature markets and their emerging counterparts. Thus, the ratio of investment in the mature and emerging markets determines the magnitude and direction that prosperity will take. Mature markets provide the most jobs and create the most goods and services, but they also tend to shed jobs, downsize, and lose exports, while emerging markets tend to create new jobs, upsize, and create exports. As Adam Smith observed, prices tend to go down when markets mature, whereas emerging markets bring new goods and services into the economy. Prices often start out high. Then, as emerging markets mature, these goods and services become more affordable. Remember when pocket calculators, computers, and cell phones were prohibitively expensive for most people? Thus, the roles of emerging and mature markets are synergistic rather than competitive. Emerging markets tend to create high-paying jobs while mature markets provide low-priced goods and services. Demand within the mature markets is heavily dependent upon economic conditions. When economic conditions are poor, mature markets tend to shed jobs and/or move them overseas. When economic conditions are good, however, these same mature markets restore some of the jobs lost during poor economic conditions, but not all. Demand within emerging markets tends to be less dependent on economic conditions. For example, Apple Inc. had their largest quarter up to that point in time during the third quarter of 2009, toward the end of a major recession. Emerging markets consist of early adapters who are willing to accept higher prices and tend to be less sensitive to economic conditions. Price-sensitive customers, however, prefer to wait for prices to fall before buying. For example, a terabyte hard drive array used to cost the neighborhood of $1 million in 1993 and was the size of a refrigerator. Earlier adapters, such as the CIA, were willing to pay this price. These buyers were not very price sensitive. By 2009, however, the price of a terabyte of storage dropped below $100. The size dropped to a single 3.5-inch hard disk, making a terabyte storage accessible to the masses. So we'd expect the market for terabyte hard drives to be more price sensitive in 2009 than it was in 1993. Entrepreneurs play a key role in this process. As Adam Smith points out, it seldom happens, however, that a great proprietor is a great improver. Existing corporations seldom create new industries. Existing industries, markets, and market niches soon develop overcapacity, saturate, and then globalize. The natural progression continues where an established industries, markets, and market niches soon quit creating new jobs and begin shedding them, and worse, dispatching these jobs overseas. As industries mature, they lose high-paying jobs as well as the economic contribution and exports they once provided. Older corporations also die off. General Electric, for example, is the only surviving member of the original group of companies that made up the Dow Industrial Average. Gone are such great companies as the New York Central. The first corporation fortunate enough to enter a new industry or market niche, of course, has the first mover advantage, which often enables that first mover to become the dominant supplier. As a result, entrepreneurs tend to look for creatable industries, markets, and market niches to attain the coveted first mover advantage. New needs are continually being created by new technology. For example, the creation of the personal computer led to the need for personal computer software, and thus it takes the ongoing development of younger industries to provide us with the benefits of low prices, full employment, and ever-widening array of goods and services. When we are too stingy with our investments in emerging markets, as is presently the case, the mature markets shed jobs faster than the emerging counterparts create them. This leads to cumulative loss of high-paying jobs, rising unemployment, rising underemployment, a situation that has been worsening for the last 35 years, forcing an increasing number of people with middle incomes to accept lower-paying employment or become unemployed altogether. This is further responsible for our downward mobility, where the younger generations earn less than their parents. The evidence is all around us. The same reasoning applies to the balance of trade. Emerging markets often create new exports. But as markets mature and globalize, U.S. suppliers within those markets tend to create fewer exports, while imports tend to take an ever-increasing share of the domestic market. Thus, optimizing the ratio of investment in emergent versus mature markets would reduce trade deficits. The same reasoning also applies to both public and private indebtedness. Emerging markets drive up both wages and employment. As people earn more, it is easier for them to avoid going into debt. Likewise, when there is a full employment economy, the government spending goes down and revenue goes up. Such reasoning further applies to economic growth, where emerging markets can be seen to drive it. Thus, the ratio of investment in emerging markets versus mature markets reaches the optimal level. The result will be sustainable economic growth. Before this can happen, the government must give investors a truly free market, where the securities laws encourage the public to invest in venture capital, not discourage them as is the case today. This idea comes right out of The Wealth of Nations, the most important textbook ever written on economics, and one we cannot allow to remain in Mark Twain's category of being the classic that everybody praises but nobody reads. The creation of new emerging markets leads to an immediate de facto shortage, which in turn creates the high-growth, high-margin condition. Such a natural development allows the manufacturer to grow rapidly and supply the new need, while further allowing the entrepreneur to become wealthy. The same situation provides a healthy incentive for the entrepreneurs to seek out creatable markets so they too can become wealthy. The key to optimal self-organization is that, within each capital market, those people in control of the capital must be free to choose between investing in entrepreneurial corporations and other types of investments.